Hi everybody, Tim Coffey here. I want to thank Cynthia Luhu for inviting me to be the guest designer for the month of November on the Little Scrap of Heavening website. In this two-part video, I'm going to show how I made these two Christmas cards. You can download these free digital stamps I created at my website, timcoffeyart.com. Just click on the digital stamps category in the left-hand navigation bar once you're at my website. There's also a link to them below this video. For the cardstock on both of these cards, I used the back of a Wheat Thins box. Measure and mark the center to make a score line with a bone folder. Burnish the edge with the bone folder until it folds as flat as possible. I used a hot glue gun to make dimensional designs on the covers of the cards, but you could also use dimensional fabric paint to achieve similar results. The advantage to the hot glue is that it dries really fast. I think the spider webs you get from the hot glue add to the texture, but if you prefer a cleaner look, I would recommend the fabric paint. You just have to wait for the paint to dry, which could take a few hours. Once the dimensional designs are dry, paint the whole cover a dark color, such as a dark brown, chocolate brown, or black. This hides the graphics on the box and prevents the bright colors from bleeding through. Once the brown paint has dried thoroughly, choose your colors for the card. I chose red for this card just to keep the design clean and simple. On the computer, I reduced the size of the digital stamp and I repeated it and copied it to fill out 12 images on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I used 140-pound Arches hot press watercolor paper to print it out on, but you could use any watercolor paper or cardstock trimmed to 8.5 by 11 inches to run through your inkjet printer. I used scissors to cut the images into rectangles, but you could use a paper cutter if you want to measure them and keep the edges at perfect right angles. I accented the snowman with this Tulip brand diamond glitter fabric paint. It was $1.79 at Michael's. Now here's a tip that I pulled from an old video where I show how you can use a pen or a pencil to tape the piece to so you don't get paint all over your fingers like I did. I smoothed the glitter paint on the snowman with a brush to kind of thin it out, but you can leave it as thick as you want, and I did apply it thick along the edges. You can see here why I wish I had remembered to use that technique of taping it to the pen first. I used the Tulip brand silver glitter fabric paint to cover the red paint with a thin coating, but I think the diamond glitter fabric paint would have worked just as well. I had never used these paints before, so it was an experiment for me, and I was really pleased with the results. On the other side of the card, I used acrylic iridescent silver paint just to show another option for accenting the dimensional design. I left the inside of the card the natural brown color of the cardboard on the inside of the box, but you could paint it or you could put a paper insert if you don't like the brown color. I hot glued the snowman in place by adding dabs of hot glue to the raised parts of the design. And now the card is done. I'm going to try to put up part 2 in a few days. Part 2 shows how I made the second card, which features a double-sided Christmas tree ornament. I want to thank Cynthia Luhu again for inviting me to be the guest designer for the month of November for A Little Scrap of Heaven. And I've put a link to her Little Scrap of Heaven Ning site at the bottom of this video, along with the links to the digital stamps on my website. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time in part 2.